Howdy, cadre. I just keep going today. Got many more important things I should be doing, but I got all weekend to do some cleanup in preparation for the house inspection. Let's extend Archivaline. What? Enderman. Tracking dirt on my floor. Okay. Yeah, and I had done a little bit more work here, but I ran out of, actually that looks kind of cool. Ran out of glass and slabs and stuff, and let's see, we're still resting. Oh, that's not stone. We're still oops. Yeah, we're still resting on the ground for now. But I was thinking I might, well, that's the question, is do I want to deal with creepers? But I'm not spending much time outdoors at night or anything. I still don't think, I maybe had one creeper explosion blow out a little bit of glass early on, but I haven't dealt with a lot of that. So maybe, yeah, maybe I'll start using wood floors. Although this isn't much height, this still is going to rest partially on ground. Well, maybe just for one more segment. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 3 episodes later, I was going to tell you my bottle return story, and it's not really much of a story, it's mainly just a complaint, and it's not directed at anybody specific because there's no specific party responsible or anything. But when the pandemic hit at the end of February, and a lot of the populace still wasn't really concerned about it or didn't know what was going on, and certainly the science still wasn't in. If you remember back then to a few months ago, they were recommending masks and gloves early on, and I was concerned enough that I early on was looking at, oh, I'm out of panes, okay. Do I have a, no, okay, I'll just run back to a crafting table. Maybe I want to relocate it. Yeah, I'm doing more down there. And actually, right by this tree is probably a good spot. I was thinking I might put a door there. Alright. So yeah, early on, whoa, there was a bunch. Whatever. I'll use it eventually. Early on, they were recommending gloves for going out in public. They weren't sure the transmission methods. How early on they weren't sure how it was spreading necessarily. So I even watched some videos from health officials who I remember seeing a tutorial about how to disinfect all of your, man. Sorry, exasperated by falling off the edge and misclicking. That's Ms. Click to you. Yeah, they weren't sure of the transmission methods, and so, and with a lot of historical viruses, it's mainly through contact, touch, and so they thought one of the primary methods of transmission. Oh, I need to count my spacing. Do I? No, it's right here. So 5, 10, 15, 20. Okay, so the next one does bump out. Good to know. To try and remember that. Maybe I'll just go ahead and do that first. 1, 2. Okay. 3, 4, 5 cuts over and bumps out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cuts over. Okay. Well, that's not the best way to get in now. Hey, cow. I'm gonna have to breed cows at some point. And bump out. Oop. Out of stone? I'm out of stone. Okay. So yeah, early on they were recommending gloves and decontamination procedures when you brought home groceries, because who knows who else handled them before you and stuff. And this was along with the stuff they haven't changed their recommendations on. Of course, washing your hands is always a good idea, especially before you touch any mucous membranes or whatever, because that's going to be the most likely method of infection, is getting stuff in your mouth, eyes, or nose. Anyways, I got sidetracked by the virus. I'm never going to get to this story. But I guess the main point for bringing all that up was, yeah, and I'm not gonna end this here with this sleep. When they shut down well, in Michigan they called it shelter-in-place orders. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that egg there. Oh, a lot of stone. What? Yeah, I guess I gotta go mining again soon. Yeah, there at the beginning, like, groceries were still considered essential, but the container returns, deposit, yeah, those were not considered as functioning part of the essential. So anyways, groceries just shut those rooms down and stopped taking the bottle deposits. So for months, I've been building up, I've got a healthy energy drink addiction, or habit, I guess. I don't know if it's it borders on an addiction, because if I don't have caffeine daily, I get withdrawal headaches, which aren't that bad. I mean, I can push past it or ignore it, especially if I'm getting enough sleep or whatever. but I do notice them, and it does alter your brain chemistry when you're on uh, when you have a regular habit of consuming caffeine. Yeah, I need stone. I really need stone. And there's no glass right here because this is another bump out. So I guess that's the next thing I have to do is back in the mine. Oh, my first chicken. Tastes so good. So yeah, I had been building up cans to return and filling, well, and at the time I already had a bunch on me because I don't have a regular habit of like weekly or once I fill a bag up taking them, so I might have already had a few bags stockpiled. Oops, yep, I did that. I might have already had a few bags stockpiled when the pandemic hit, and then they stopped accepting the bottle returns or can. I just drink cans. I do agree, like for beer drinkers, it affects the taste. I think beer in glass just tastes better than beer from aluminum. And most of the aluminum cans, I think they put a coating on the inside. Yeah, I'm getting off the track again. So yeah, my point is when the pandemic hit, I had several bags already built up, and I continued drinking my energy drinks even through the pandemic. I cut back quite a bit because I was doing less traveling, trying to shelter in place. But the thing is, it's kind of a gray area. You can still purchasing food was still an essential function you could leave home for, and beverages are, legally or kind of treated as a food. I think the energy drinks might be considered nutritional supplements rather than food. But I think all of the non-water beverages are considered a subset of food. So, anyways, it's kind of a gray area. And of course, if I buy a snack at the same time as a drink, then I am getting food. So that kind of legally justifies a drive to a store. And there's a store I've got just a few blocks from me where I can buy my energy drinks. So that's in walking distance. So that's even less regulated. Because leaving the house for exercise was permitted. Anyway, being a cautious individual, I read through all of the governor's orders, which we have a Democratic governor in the state of Michigan right now, and she had fairly restrictive guidelines for the close down procedures. In general, right now, the Democrats are being more cautious and more health conscious, and we're more likely to be listening to the CDC guidelines and stuff, whereas the Republicans are more likely to be just following the lead of the president, the Republican, quote unquote. I don't think he's a real Republican. These neocons are not the Republicans I grew up with. with, that's for sure. The Reagan era is well gone. Reagan was like pro-immigration in some ways because he had an idea of the shining light, or the shining city upon a hill that would be a beacon for the rest of the world, and we would guide, by leading by example, we would guide the whole world into a better age, and we would welcome the good immigrants that were led here by that shining light in with open arms, and anyways, a lot of that stuff has gone by the wayside with these neocons in charge. They also were, the Republicans back then were at least claimed to be the party of small government, of fiscal responsibility. And I think, in a way, Reagan is part of that change, is that he claimed to be a supporter of small government, but then he did so much spending on the military industrial complex and social programs, the war on drugs, and other things, that he became the old criticism of the Democrats was they were tax and spend liberals, that they would want to tax you and then spend all that money on social programs. But Reagan kind of turned the conservatives, or at least the Republican Party, the GOP, from being a don't tax, don't spend party to being a don't tax but spend anyways party, which is just long-term not viable. So anyways, wow, I'm getting fully sidetracked by historical politics. Anyways, but in the current situation, everything has become politicized, even the health crisis, the pandemic, because, and it just blows my mind, the Republican Party has kind of become the party of science denial. And that's largely led by the climate change denial, that the new breed of conservatives don't want to admit that humans are what's driving the warming of the climate, or that the climate's warming at all. I mean, it's like 98% of scientists that agree now that the climate is warming, but so that the deniers have shifting from denying the warming to just denying that we're the cause of the warming, and they've created new mythologies around, well, there's these long cycles of warming and cooling, and so this is just a natural part of these long cycles that it's getting warmer right now, the trends we're seeing. But so yeah, anyways, but hey, welcome to the world. Between the climate deniers and the vaccine anti-vaxxers, we've pushed into an age where it seems like the Democratic Party is the party of science and communal reason, I guess. Oh, that didn't make me sick. Nice. And the Republican Party seems to be the party of science denial in general. And now with them being anti-maskers, which if wearing a mask is a burden, if it limits your freedom, then what is wearing pants and shoes and shirts do? And even that, it's interesting that I always wonder why on the front of stores it said no shirt, no shirts, no shirt, no shoes, no service. I always wondered, like, why aren't pants listed? And the reason is that pants are covered by basic law. That there's, if you go out without pants in public in general, you can get arrested because you're being indecent and exposing your genitals. But you can go out in public with nothing on but underwear if you want, legally. But to go into a retail store or other public space like a library or whatever, they didn't want the health risks of spreading germs through, foot fungus or whatever. Who's that? Where's that? And they didn't want the issues of people walking around shirtless in stores. Yeah, maybe I should start widening this ravine just so I get fewer things dropping on me. Alright, I'll start it. These little ledges, I think, tend to be darker and tend to increase spawn rates. So anyways, to get back to my bottle return story, jeez. Or can. Well, it's bottles, it's plastic bottles and aluminum cans is what I'm dealing with. So I built up many bags, and then the pandemic hit, and they stopped accepting the bottle returns. So then, but I continued to consume, so I'm building up more garbage bags full of cans to return, get my deposit for. And there's obviously value in those, so I wasn't about to just put them out to the curb to recycle or something. If I was a wealthy man, I might do that, just short term. And I built up enough that I started shifting the bags to my basement, which I have to go outside to get to, but it gets them out of my personal space, so they're not cramping my style in my own apartment. So I had piled up, I don't know, maybe 10 bags down in the basement while there was a moratorium on returns. And yeah, the secondary effects on the community of the shutdown is an issue for another day that I've thought about getting into, but I'm not going to gotten off track far enough. So, anyways, and I've been going to stores actually more often than normal because I've stopped. Well, I'm going to knock that one out. I've cut way back on my prepared foods because I wasn't sure if I trusted, like that was a new issue that came up with this pandemic, is if restaurants are still open because food is considered a necessity, you suddenly have to question every restaurant. Are they taking precautions to keep you safe? Or, the fact is, if you don't know... Oh, I guess I didn't want to do that. Well, maybe I'll just do this end for now. Well, now... Oh, that's diorite. I guess my pack's full. guess I should eat my bread until... Well, this is my last little... Okay. Put that there. Alright. Now I can pick that up. Okay. And now I've made it dark here. Alright, I'll just... What's the darkest spot? I guess here. So yeah, suddenly you have to question every place, every fast food place. Are you going to trust them? Because people can be asymptomatic for a few days or even a week. And I think some people get the virus and like never get tested and never learn, was it just some sort of flu, or was it the Rona? And especially if you have lower income employees working at your facility who are considered essential workers by the state, are they going to be going to work even though they feel a little bit sick because they're worried about how they're going to pay for their rent or food or all the other expenses they have? And the science was showing that the virus could be on surfaces for maybe 6 hours or more, and depending on the surface, I think like on metals it was the shortest, but if it's something like cardboard or whatever, it can be longer, and something like meat, the virus can stay alive for 12 hours or something potentially. So that led me to think, well, I shouldn't be buying sandwiches, for example, because like at a place where they handle cold cuts, that might be just sitting out there where an employee's breathing on it for hours before they prepare your sandwich. And that probably would be the worst case scenario, is that nobody bought the roast beef in the last few hours, so an employee who's feels a little bit under the weather but has to work is sitting there breathing on that roast beef for a few hours before you show up, and then they're going to make you a sandwich without even heating it, which might kill the virus. Anyways, so I cut out sandwiches from my diet, and for a while I wasn't doing any fast food because the science was showing that a properly cooked thing should be safe, and really consuming it is safer than getting it on your mucous membranes, because your digestive tract at least is somewhat protected by the acids that break down your food, and it's not just stomach acid, but also your saliva is the first step of that. Your saliva will break things down, so they can they can break down the shell that surrounds the virus. Oh, I don't have room for this. Yeah, I do. I just broke a pick. They can break down the outer coating of the virus that carries the instructions for how the virus reproduces in your lungs. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked by the virus again, but I have to deal with carrying too much. Maybe I should just pitch this bow. So close to breaking. Bottle return. So I had built up 10 or a dozen garbage bags full of cans and bottles over a few months, and then even once they started taking bottle returns again, I noticed that every time I went to the store, you know, about once a week or whatever. Oh, my point with all that was I cut back on prepared food and started buying more like frozen, you know, microwavable meals or whatever, or other things I could prepare quickly and easily at home, which was not traditionally my trend, but I've found that they've changed a lot since I was a kid. They're a lot better now. They taste better. They're easy to prepare. I always had a memory of them being like, yeah, I hear something here. I always remember them being like tasteless and, I don't know, greasy or... Okay, here we are. Come on, I want to break my bow. Step over. That didn't break my bow. New tear. Okay. That didn't break my bow. Where are you at? Oh. That broke my bow. I found my first spawner. Oh. And I'm getting attacked from behind. Okay. Interesting, interesting. Let us retreat. Let's make a path of torches so I remember. Where to go. Shoot, but I still have a issue because I've picked up andesite. Alright, let's set that down. Okay, now I should be able to gather the stuff. Alright, the torch trail. So anyways, when going to grocery stores on about a weekly basis to get more TV dinners, which that's funny too, because it has nothing to do with the TV, but that's what people started calling it because generally you just make them quick and eat them in front of the TV, which is a cultural thing. It doesn't really relate to the TV. And in fact now, I don't have a TV. I mean, I don't watch TV. I have a couple sitting here, but I don't watch TV. I watch stuff on my computer monitor. What? There's no coal in that one. So when do you stop calling it TV, you know? I guess I'll store my chicken. So anyways, the point. Getting to the point. Man. So I was noticing when they reopened the bottle returns, which usually is a little dedicated room in the back of the grocery, again to encourage you going through it and shopping before you leave to spend that money. Or some of the places around me have it in a little side room near the front, which I prefer slightly. I still go in and buy stuff with the money because you have to go in to redeem the little tickets anyway. Which all that I think is a good system. You know, it just the machine counts up the cans and then you take a receipt to a register to get the deposit money back, and it encourages sales because you might as well kind of use that as a voucher or coupon or whatever. Why does it keep doing that? I don't know. Is it a specific key I hit, or who knows? Mysteries abound. I don't know what I'm doing with this basalt, but if I want to keep collecting stone. Alright, I'm just going to watch this cook and finish my story. We're in striking distance. We're almost done. I think I can do it by the end of this episode, even if this isn't a long episode. So, I had waited a few more weeks to deal with bottle returns, because every time I went to the store and passed one of these bottle return areas, I noticed that there was a long line of people with shopping carts full of empty cans and bottles, all wearing masks, all standing on little dots placed, 6 feet apart or whatever. Well, not in all cases, but so it was obvious to me that there was huge demand that had built up over the last few months while this system was shut down, and that it was taking some time to get through it. And it made me think about, well, what are those people who had, this was part of their routine to collect bottles and cans as a way to help support themselves and buy food or whatever they're buying. What have they been doing for the last few months? There are all these unintended hardships that affect the most marginalized groups, the poorest and most ignored among us. And I guess I'm lower middle class, or I don't know. I certainly think my income puts me above the poverty line most of the time. But there have been times when I've been laid off, had trouble finding work, been on unemployment for stints, and have relied on the system for that. I've never been on food stamps or anything like that. Or in Michigan, we now call it SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program or something. I'm not sure what it stands for, something along those lines. And that system's changed. They're not stamps anymore. You get a card that looks like a credit card, but has a balance on it that you can use only for approved food items, not tobacco or other things, just necessities. So I think that's all cool that there's not as much stigma around that anymore. You can shop without people looking down on you, eyeballing you, whatever, cashiers giving you attitude or what have you. And of course, the pundits, the conservative pundits, like to say, oh, they're out there buying lobsters and stuff. Well, no, if you're poor, you're going to buy the minimum that you need to survive. Now, there are certainly poor people with alcohol addictions and that are buying drugs to escape their reality and stuff, but I don't think spending what you're the little bit of nutrition assistance you're getting on high end items is, it's certainly not common. It might happen occasionally, but I'd rather people splurge on lobster once in a while rather than spend it on crack cocaine or even just tobacco. But and alcohol is kind of the gray area there, where it would be nice if poor alcoholics, could get help beating that addiction. But and maybe more funds could be put into that. But you can't buy alcohol with food assistance from the government, I'm pretty sure. And I'm sure the pundits would get into, well, you sell your food card to people more in need and then use the cash to get the drugs. But I don't know, how often is that happening? I don't know. Anyway, so I need to clean my apartment in preparation for a house inspection Monday morning. And people were touring, looking at stuff, so I thought, and I wanted to bump into them to ask them some questions about what was going on. So I left my apartment to do laundry and pull some of the cans out of my basement to return them to get the deposits back, mainly as an excuse to run into the people touring my house, so that it was looked like I was just doing normal things, as my reason for walking around the house. Yeah, I might take that upstairs. Oh, there's a little bit more cobblestone. So, but with the long lines, I've been thinking about when would be the best time to do that. And I'm more naturally a night person, so I thought, well, it would probably be a good time to do that late in the evening, after people have done their normal daily food shopping and stuff. And the evenings, people are more likely to want to be home having dinner, watching TV, stuff like that. So maybe the evening would be the best time to go. So I loaded up 5 garbage bags of cans, which was maybe half of them, which pretty much fills my little car. And I drove to the local Kroger. Well, I looked up the stores, and I saw that Kroger closes at 11. Meijer closes at 12. And the reduced hours of these places that used to be 24/7 is another aspect of this pandemic that I find interesting, that they were able to lay off probably not half, but maybe a third of their employees during this pandemic, because they cut their hours in half. And you still need almost as much cleanup, but when you're closing your stores for half of the day, or not half, but 40% of the daily cycle or whatever, that's a whole bunch of employees you can just get rid of. And because of the pandemic, it was a great excuse to let go of people. We just, with the store on reduced hours, we can't support your continued employment. And who are the people that are going to be laid off? Of course, the people that aren't as good employees. They aren't as good at attendance. They don't work as hard and stuff. And then you don't have to go through disciplinary measures and recording, you know, these are the problems that we laid them off for. Oh, is this going to make it? Yes. Didn't waste a piece of coal on it. Nice. So, again, these are potentially the most marginalized people, the ones that have a harder time holding down a job, all getting fired, losing their potentially primary source of income at the same time that there's a pandemic. And that's why the unemployment rates have shot up, because there's this whole swath of people that suddenly don't have work and can't find a new job. I told the story of a woman that I ran into at the unemployment agency when I was working there, who just couldn't. She had worked at the same restaurant for a long time and didn't know what she was going to do, because no restaurants were hiring new people. They had all just laid everybody off, and none of them were starting up again, so they weren't hiring new people yet. And a lot of restaurants told their employees, you know, we can't pay you during this pandemic, but we hope you'll come back. But not all of them did that. And again, it's a great opportunity to get rid of people you don't like, wait a few months, and then find better people to replace them, which is an interesting aspect about this whole thing that I think has been underanalyzed, underappreciated. I guess we'll do some egg tossing while I try to finish this ridiculously long. It should have been quick, but I do all the backstory and side paths, and I'm sorry, but maybe this is more interesting than me just playing and talking about what I'm doing, because at least there's a narrative thread and some emotion behind it. And anyway, so, whew. Oh, these eggs. Oh, man. Just egg central. So I had looked up the times of the stores, and Kroger, there's a couple Krogers. There's probably 3 Krogers at the edges of Ann Arbor. Did that go in the water? Does it break if it goes in the water? No. It sinks? Maybe it breaks when it hits the bottom. Oh, hey, guy. Did you drown? Are you a drowned? Ow. Did you drown in this lake? I'm sorry. So yeah, there are several Krogers. Probably 3 Krogers on the edges of Ann Arbor, circling them. They don't really put the big stores downtown or near campus, which is a whole nother social evaluation. Food deserts. Look up food deserts. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the basic idea is that often in urban areas, it's harder to buy cheap produce, fruits, vegetables, meats, dairy, because you don't, the property values are higher. It's harder to have the big stores with the cheap sales. So often, unless you have good urban planners, and some sort of social support for it, those things cost more money, which means that people that live in cities, especially poorer people, are more likely to have to just buy, oh, welcome to the world, welcome to the world, welcome to the world, more likely to buy less nutritious foods. Welcome to the world. Which, leads to more health problems and yada, 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 sidetracks, distractions, tangents, that's a good word. So the Krogers, I looked up the closest one, closes at 11. I figure they all close at 11 these days, at least in Ann Arbor. But I was intending just to go to one and return my bottles. But I also looked up Myers, closes at midnight. And there are 2 Myers on the corners of Ann Arbor that happen to be near 2 of the Krogers, 2 of the 3 Krogers. So I made the mistake of going to the nice Kroger on North Campus, which is not near a Myers. But I figured, they're open. Hey guy, don't want to deal with you. I figured, I'll go there, return my cans. This would be a good time. They're about to close. Hopefully there's not a long line. And I got there, loaded 3 bags into a shopping cart, started to walk up to 3 of my 5 bags in the shopping cart, started to walk up to the store, and the guy doing the carts, collecting the carts to bring them in. I was going to switch to wood, wasn't I? I think I'll switch to wood. He was kind enough to let me know. And he could have let me just walk in to find this out, but 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 5. He was kind enough to let me know that their bottle return room was closed for the evening. And that they were closing it early every night so that they could do a thorough disinfection process in the evening before they closed. And this kind of annoyed me because I know that, just because you close a store at a certain time to the public doesn't mean you send your employees home at that time. In fact, the night is the best time to do cleaning and restock shelves and stuff like that. So, just because they close at midnight doesn't mean the employees go home at midnight. And so they could have the bottle return open until the store closes and just have a few employees stay later to do the cleaning, disinfecting, whatever. So in a way, it's just like the store has made a decision short term to save money and make it easier for themselves, which is an inconvenience for customers. I mean, I was certainly pissed off that they had closed the bottle return. I guess it was maybe 2.5 hours before the store closed. So I was kind of annoyed because I was already tired and I just wanted to. My plan was to just buy a snack and a drink. I wasn't going to spend a lot of time shopping there. And to express my frustration. I had kind of learned from my last long-term employer, the guy who laid me off with zero notice. Sometimes if you don't share your frustration, you're the only one to suffer. You're the only one who knows that you're suffering. And, you know, I'm using the word suffering. I don't want to make... Yeah, this was just an inconvenience. But I've learned to just kind of share my emotions more openly, because at least then, like, it does accomplish a couple things. One is it's a catharsis. It's a release. Instead of bottling it up, pushing it down, which can affect your own, that can build up your stress and, arguably affect your health over time and what have you. But the other thing it accomplishes is it can actually change things, usually not just with a worker. I don't think the cart guy is going to remember to go in and say to his manager, oh, there was a guy that was really upset that the bottle return is closed so early. Which is partly why we have the Karen phenomenon of people asking to speak to the manager when they're inconvenienced, because as a culture we know that the minimum wage employee isn't going to be the one to try and change how the system works. You've got to walk in and ask a manager if you want anything to really change. Well, I do want the supports to be stone. And I think I was putting them one underground. Don't really need the dirt, but I like the idea of it being oops, well. So anyways, my point, oh jeez, this story is ridiculous. It should have been a one episode 20-minute story, but here we are. You get a nice long episode today, I guess, because of this whole thing. And I want to put torches down here so as not to encourage things spawning right under Archivaline. What's the best way in here? I've cut myself off from the archive. This is the best way, but I really should start filling this in. Otherwise, I'm gonna do these jumps, which is fine. I've gotten pretty good at these corner jumps. So yeah, I had to load my bags back into the car. Not a big deal, but then I wasn't near a mire, and the mires I knew were open later, and I assumed had a different policy. I ran out of stone, didn't I? Okay. And if I'm going to fill in with wood, Oh, I can do some of the slabs up here from the roof. It's probably easier from the roof. Hey, that sounds like a new text. So I had to drive to a different corner of the city to get to another store, and because I assumed the Kroger policies would be consistent, I went to a Meijer instead, which I knew would probably be a little bit busier. But the Meijer too, the guy at the front door stopped me and let me know that theirs had closed several hours earlier as well. And since I had planned to buy a snack and a drink, I grabbed a snack and a drink at Meijer and then realized that the lines were ridiculous because there was a long line for the self-checkout. It was probably like 8 people with carts backed up waiting for the self-checkout zone because one of the self-checkout zones was shut and the other was open. And oh, be safe, be safe. I hear footsteps. Oh. Oops. Can I sleep? No. Monster nearby. I'm out of stone, so I might as well head back down anyway. Granite. So, yeah, I was, and there were only, I think, 2 regular aisles being operated. And then I really got annoyed because I stepped to the end of one of the aisles that had what looks like a couple bachelors with just a few items waiting in line. Obviously one advantage of self-checkout, at least at Meijer's, is there's a limit of like 20 items or whatever. So they tend to move quicker even if the line seems longer. But I stepped up behind one of the normal checkout lines with the hope that, it wouldn't be too bad. It might be quicker than the long line for self-checkout. And as soon as I did, a woman who was standing on the opposite side of the aisle behind a different line, the other of the 2 that were open, said, "Excuse me, sir, the line starts back here." So apparently there was a single line down one of the aisles. She was the only one in it. She had a shopping cart full of stuff. I had 2 items. But she was telling me to get behind her, and apparently that single line was splitting into the 2 lines that were spaced out. They weren't right next to each other. So apparently this was part of the social distancing procedures that Meijer's was following. And so I'm like, okay, and I went over and got behind her. And as soon as I did, a guy with a shopping cart full stepped up to where I had just been and got in line, and she didn't say anything to him. So now I'm pissed off at this customer who was pretending to manage the social distancing and told me to get behind her, but then stopped doing it as soon as I did, and another guy stepped up. And I don't know if it's because he was with a woman as well, or maybe because he had a bigger build that he seemed more imposing, or maybe she just gave up right at that moment. But I'm like, why am I listening to just another shopper? Especially since if I was in her position, I would have just ignored it. Like not get in anybody else's business. And the fact that he has 2 items mean even if he gets in line, he's not going to affect it much. He's going to move through there pretty quick. So at that point, I got annoyed enough that I put my drink back. I walked back and put the snack back on the shelf, which I don't like doing because I've just handled it, and I'm cautious about this whole pandemic thing. But I did that and walked out and went home. So the whole thing was frustrating. Wasn't able to return any of my containers. And then I was supposed to work today, but my car was full of containers, so I decided to change plans anyways, and did that this morning. So this morning I had to go and wait in a line of about 3 people ahead of me that had pretty full carts of cans. It probably took an hour all told to deal with. But, I have no specific, it's just stuff's a little bit harder now, that's all. And I'm not, there's no one specific to blame. It's, the bottle returns aren't the important part of this pandemic. So I don't fault the governor for not thinking through that aspect. And I wouldn't argue that bottle deposit return is an essential function either. I think it made sense that was put on hold. I'm annoyed at the retailers for having limited hours of bottle returns when I think it would be just as appropriate for them to, if they're going to close at midnight, do their restocking, cleanup, and disinfections procedure over the next 2 hours, and then none of your employees that are still there have to deal with customers at all. While the cashiers are counting up their registers, they're counting up what's in their register and doing their checkout procedures, and maybe they can leave within an hour or so. But you can have other employees that maybe start stocking beforehand, but you can switch the people collecting carts to doing the disinfecting or the cleanup. You can have the janitors that, while the store is open, they're dealing with spills and other stuff like that. They can switch to the disinfecting procedures and the polishing the floors and stuff, waxing whatever needs to be done for a couple hours. But it really doesn't affect the cost or flow of the retail establishment to do that. So I guess what I need to consider is waking up early and doing that. Because that's the other thing is today I didn't want to go through twice. It took me about an hour to deal with 3 bags. And I didn't really feel like trying to pile 5 bags into one cart because I knew that if I dropped a bag, it would cause cans to fly everywhere and it would just be a big nuisance. So I dealt with 3 of my 5 bags today, and I can load more tomorrow and take it, and probably in the morning if I go at 8 a.m. The only people there are going to be the early bird seniors and the other people trying to avoid crowds. And so it'll probably go a lot quicker and be easier, all that, but it means waking up early, and I've gotten into a pattern with conference calls daily, checking in with Lansing, our state capital, daily at 10. I've gotten into a pattern of waking up at 9, taking a shower most of the time before then, and doing my conference call, and then starting on the rest of my day after that at 10:15, 10:30, whatever it ends up being, depending on the length of the conference call. And So this is a thing where now if I wake up and go, well, on a weekday, tomorrow's Saturday, so I don't know, what day of the week is it for you? Leave me a comment. If you're not a bot and managed to listen to this whole freaking episode or whole story, 4 episodes, whatever it is, and you're not somebody who's avoiding talking to me because we had another falling out recently. Yeah, if you feel motivated, feel free to leave a comment of what day it is you're watching this. It's a Friday for me. I'm going to go out and get more caffeine, I think. Should probably prepare a meal and maybe watch some YouTube. Oh, that's not night. That's not critical. I haven't used this water since I made it, yes, but not recently. Insert catchphrase here.